All right, so let's look at a couple of different questions related to cost of goods sold in a manufacturing environment. And these two questions are quite a bit different. And the reason I want to show you these is because we need to understand that not all questions about cost of goods sold or cost of goods manufactured or anything for that matter are going to be created equally. You may have a question where you're given basically most of the work, and as long as you know how to add and subtract, you can come up with the answer, and then we can have some questions that are a little bit more involved. Now, none of the stuff that we're going to do is going to be real difficult, but I do want to kind of show you that you might see questions with varying levels of difficulty that are essentially the end result question is the exact same thing. So let's look here at this first question that we've got. And we've seen this before, but it says Wooten and McMahon Enterprises produces a product with the following per unit costs. And what they've done here is they've given us direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. And all three of these items are, of course, product costs. So they want to know what was the cost of goods sold last year. We've got some additional information. They produced and sold 825 units. Well, this is, this is easy. They're telling us exactly how many were sold, 825, and then how much they sold them for. They even give us total and selling and administrative costs. And then they want to know what was the cost of goods sold last year. So really the only thing tricky about this question at all is the fact that they've included the sales price here and then selling and administrative expenses, which we're not going to need. What we are going to need is to establish the cost per unit. But fortunately, in this question, we don't have to really do much to make that happen. All we have to do is just take these three product costs and add them together. $13 plus $8.80 plus $16.50. And so if we do that, and if you watch the other video, there was a question about calculating operating income, and if we were going to do that again, we actually would have to do a little bit of work. But they just want to know cost of goods sold. So we've actually already done this before, because to get operating income like we did in the other video, we would have to have cost of goods sold. So our cost of goods sold is $38.30 per unit, and then we're going to have to multiply that by the number of units sold. To come up with $31,597 and 50 cents. And it does say round the answer to 2 decimal points. So we're going to do that. Now, if you thought that was easy, there's probably a reason why you thought that. And that's because it was easy. It was exceptionally easy. This next question is not going to be too much more difficult, really. But we are going to have to keep track of a few more things, and we have to understand, well, we don't have to understand anything, but it's best if we can understand some things along the way that will help us down the road when we see a completely different question, or heaven forbid we actually want to learn how to do this. So it says Hendricks and Frank's company had the following beginning and ending inventory balances for the current year. Okay. Materials as of January the 1st, and then December 31st, and then we have the same for work in process and finished goods. Additionally, we had direct labor costs of $33,000, and we had manufacturing overhead of $46,200. Materials purchased were $29,700, and selling administrative costs were $24,200, which is, I believe, the exact same number we saw above. Hendricks and Frank sold 27,500 units of product, okay, during the year at a sales price of $5.25 per unit. What was the amount of cost of goods sold for the year? So this is tricky because I will tell you the truth. I had already figured out how to do this question well before I got down here to the number of units sold. I don't need this information. I don't need this information at all. In the previous question, we had to have that kind of information. We had to know how many units had been sold because we were given all of this information. And so we said, okay, we can come up with a per unit cost of $38.30. Great, easy. Now I got to know how many we sold. But here it's a little bit different. We're given an abundance of information, enough to answer the question before we ever get down to how many units were sold. We have the information here to calculate the $38.30, which we did in the question above. So again, I can answer this question. You need to be able to answer this question without this information. If this 27.5 was not here, you could still answer the question, what was the amount of cost of goods sold for the year? All right? And how are we going to do that? Well, hopefully we know by now what costs are going to be included in cost of goods sold. So we've got some costs here. We've got direct labor. And I'm trying to decide how I want to show this to you. We're going to need most of the numbers in this question. I can tell you we're not going to need the 27.5, and we're not going to care about the $5.25 because we're not trying to determine revenue, and we're not going to worry about this 24.2 here because operating expenses are not part of cost of goods sold. Okay. So what I would do is I would lay the formula out of direct materials plus direct labor plus manufacturing overhead plus beginning work in process minus ending work in process plus beginning finished goods minus ending finished goods. Okay. Now, if I were doing this myself as a student, this is not exactly the way that I would do this, but this is the safe way to do this. Okay. We know a little bit more than what we think we know. So we got a little bit of a right off the bat here. This is our one little spot here where it gets a little bit tricky. But if we follow what we learned before about direct materials, really anything, it's always going to be the formula of this is not an actual accounting formula, but beginning plus new activity, whether it's purchases or whatever, minus ending. Okay. And so with materials, we've got beginning materials of 11,000 right there. Okay. Plus new activity purchases 29.7, and then minus ending materials of 8,800. Direct labor is simply 33,000 taken directly from the question. Manufacturing overhead is 46,200. Beginning work in process is 19,800. Ending work in process is 18,700. Beginning finished goods is 23,100. And ending is 18,150. So let's do this math right here real quick. $11,000 in beginning materials plus materials purchases of 29,700, and then minus the materials that we still had left, because if we still have them, there's no way they can be part of cost of goods sold. And that's going to give us 31,900. I'm then going to add to that 33,000 for direct labor. I'm then going to add to that manufacturing overhead of 46,200. I'm going to add to that my beginning work in process, 19,800. Okay, and now I'm going to probably have to move this calculator around a little bit. I'm going to, let's see, did I, bear with me one second. I don't know if I hit the minus sign. I did. Minus 18,700. And that would be the ending work in process. Let's see, minus 18,700 plus 23,100. 23,100 for finished goods, and then minus 18,150 So our cost of goods sold is 117,150. Okay, so you can see that we did not need this 27.5 here. If we wanted to determine our unit cost, we could divide this 117,150 by the 27.5, and we're going to find out, if we do that, that our average cost is somewhere around $4, and pretty close to $4.25, I think. But we don't actually have to do that. 426. Okay, so I was off by a penny. We don't actually have to do that, though. That's not part of the question. For our purposes, the answer is 117,150.